and welcome to another Deep Dive. This time, we're going to be looking at the future of electric vehicles.
Electrifying.
Yeah, it really is. And we're going to be taking a look at an episode of the podcast, Drive into the Future. The episode was called The Future of Electric Vehicles. Charging Ahead.
Catchy.
It is pretty catchy. So today we're going to unpack all that good stuff, the tech, the challenges, and just where this whole industry is going. You know, one thing that's really striking to me is how many more EVs you see on the roads these days. I mean, it's really exploded in the past few years. It wasn't that long ago that they were a pretty niche market. What do you think has led to this surge in popularity?
Well, you're right. It wasn't that long ago that EVs were seen as kind of a novelty.
Yeah.
Like a science project.
Yeah.
But now people are realizing that EVs are not just a pipe dream. They're a viable option.
Yeah, for sure.
And there are a bunch of reasons for that. One big factor is that people are becoming more and more concerned about the environment.
Absolutely.
They want cleaner alternatives to gas guzzlers.
Yeah.
And EVs are a big part of that solution.
Yeah.
They produce zero tailpipe emissions. So that's a huge plus.
Totally. Another thing is the cost of gas. It's been all over the place lately.
Yeah, that's been a real pain in the wallet for a lot of people.
Yeah, and that's made EVs even more attractive. You know, you can save a ton of money on fuel in the long run.
Exactly. And then you've got government incentives, in many places tax breaks, rebates,
Right.
things like that,
Right.
that make buying an EV even more appealing.
So it's really a combination of factors that are driving this EV boom. It's not just about being eco-conscious anymore. There are real tangible benefits. And speaking of benefits, let's dive into the technology itself. I feel like every day there's some new breakthrough. What are some of the most exciting advancements you're seeing?
Oh, there's so much happening. It's hard to keep up.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a few highlights. Rapid charging, for example. Just a few years ago, charging your EV was like watching paint dry. It took forever.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
But now we have chargers that can juice up your car in like 20 minutes. That's a game changer. You can stop for a quick coffee break and be back on the road with a full charge.
That is amazing. And what about regenerative braking? I've heard a lot about that.
Yeah, that's another really cool technology.
Yeah.
So basically, when you break in an EV, the electric motor acts as a generator, capturing energy that would normally be lost as heat.
Oh, I see.
And then that energy is fed back to the battery. It's a clever way to increase efficiency and extend your range.
So you're actually getting something back from braking instead of just wasting energy?
Exactly. And then there are all the AI-driven systems that are making EVs safer and more convenient to drive.
Yeah, like the self-driving features you hear so much about.
Exactly. Those are still in development, but they're getting better all the time.
It's pretty mind-blowing to think that cars could drive themselves one day.
It is. It's like
Really?
something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's becoming a reality.
One thing I find particularly cool about these AI systems is that they're constantly learning and improving. It's not just about convenience, it's about optimization. You know, the car is actually analyzing the road and making adjustments to give you the best possible driving experience. And speaking of pushing boundaries, have you heard about electric planes, boats, motorcycles?
Oh yeah, it's not just about cars anymore. The whole transportation industry is going electric.
It's like a whole new world of
It
possibilities.
is. We've got electric ferries, electric buses, electric delivery trucks, you name it.
And electric planes, I mean, that's just wild.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. The technology is still in its early stages, but there are already companies testing electric planes.
Wow. So what about the big players in the EV market? Who's leading the charge?
Well, Tesla has been the undisputed leader for a long time. They've been pushing the boundaries of EV technology, and they've created a lot of buzz and excitement around electric cars.
They've definitely been the pioneers in a lot of ways.
They have, but they're not alone anymore. We've got new players like Rivian and Lucid Motors entering the market.
I've heard of Rivian. They make those cool electric trucks and SUVs, right?
Exactly. They're focused on adventure vehicles that are both rugged and sustainable.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what about Lucid Motors?
They're making luxury EVs that are known for their sleek design and incredible performance.
So it's not just about practicality anymore. There's a real focus on style and performance, too.
Absolutely.
Mm.
And what's really interesting is that even traditional automakers like Ford and GM are now heavily investing in EVs.
Yeah, it seems like everyone's jumping on the electric bandwagon.
They are. They realize that the future is electric and they don't want to be left behind.
It really feels like the whole industry is shifting gears. But as exciting as this technology is, there are still some pretty big roadblocks to overcome. One that immediately comes to mind is infrastructure, especially the availability of charging stations. You might find them at the grocery store or the mall. But what about when you're on a road trip?
You've hit a key point. While charging stations are becoming more common, We're not quite at the point where you can just hop in your EV and drive across the country without having to carefully plan your route.
Right. It's not like gas stations where you can find them on pretty much every corner.
Exactly. And in densely populated areas, even finding a charging spot can be a challenge. You might have to circle the block a few times or wait in line.
It reminds me of the early days of the internet. You know, we had the technology, but the infrastructure wasn't quite there yet.
Like a good analogy.
Mm.
It took time and investment to build out the network we have today.
Yeah, and it seems like with EVs, governments and private companies are starting to take this challenge seriously.
Yes, there are massive investments being made to build out a more robust, fast-charging network. In the U.S. alone, billions of dollars are being allocated to EV infrastructure.
That's good to hear. But it's not just about the quantity of charging stations, is it? It's also about the quality.
You're absolutely right. We need to make sure these chargers are fast, reliable, and strategically located. To meet the needs of EV drivers, we don't want people to be stranded on the side of the road with a dead battery.
That would be a nightmare. And there's another layer to this sustainability. How do we ensure that the electricity powering these chargers is coming from clean sources?
That's a really important consideration. It wouldn't make much sense to switch to electric vehicles if we're just going to be powering them with dirty energy from coal-fired power plants.
Yeah, that would defeat the whole purpose.
Yeah.
And while we're on the topic of sustainability, there's another aspect of EVs that often gets overlooked: battery recycling. What happens to those massive batteries at the end of their life cycle?
That's a critical question. While EVs themselves are much cleaner than gas-powered vehicles, the production and disposal of lithium-ion batteries can have environmental impacts if not handled properly.
So what's being done to address this?
Well, fortunately, companies like Redwood Materials are stepping up to tackle this challenge. They're pioneering innovative recycling processes to recover valuable materials from EV batteries.
Oh, that's interesting. So they're not just throwing those batteries in a landfill?
No, they're actually recycling them and creating a more circular supply chain.
That's great to hear. So they're basically taking those old batteries and giving them a new life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's crucial for making the EV revolution truly sustainable.
Absolutely. It's not just about the cars themselves, it's about the entire ecosystem.
Right. And that brings us to what I find most fascinating about this whole EV revolution: the sheer pace of innovation. Two areas in particular stand out: autonomy and battery technology.
Okay, so we've got self-driving cars on the horizon and a battery tech race that's moving at warp speed. This is getting really interesting.
Yeah.
So let's start with autonomy. Where are we at with self-driving technology? I mean, how close are we to actually seeing these vehicles on the road?
Well, it's closer than you might think. Companies like Waymo and Tesla are already testing autonomous vehicles on public roads in various parts of the world.
I've seen those videos. It's pretty wild.
It is. They're making significant progress in developing the algorithms and sensor systems that allow these vehicles to navigate and make decisions in real time. It's incredibly complex stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine there are so many variables to consider.
Exactly. And it's not just about the technology itself. There are legal and regulatory hurdles to overcome.
Right, of course. There are probably a ton of laws that need to be updated.
Absolutely. And then there's the whole issue of public perception and acceptance.
And people are still pretty wary of self-driving cars, I think.
There's definitely a trust factor that needs to be built up.
But imagine what our cities will look like once these self-driving EVs become commonplace. Do you think we'll even need to own cars anymore?
That's a fascinating question. Some experts predict a future where transportation is a service rather than a product.
Interesting. So instead of owning a car, you just subscribe to a transportation service.
Exactly. You summon an autonomous EV using an app, much like you would order an Uber or a Lyft today.
And the car just shows up, takes you where you need to go, and then moves on to the next passenger.
Exactly. No need to worry about parking maintenance or insurance.
That's pretty mind-blowing. It could really change the way we live in cities.
Absolutely. Think about all the space that's currently dedicated to parking.
Yeah, that's a huge amount of real estate.
Imagine if we could reclaim that space for green spaces, pedestrian walkways, bike lanes.
It would make cities so much more livable.
It would. It could really transform urban planning as we know it.
Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about the other big area of innovation, battery technology. What are some of the most promising developments in this area?
Well, the quest for better batteries is a hotbed of innovation right now.
I can believe it. It seems like there's a new breakthrough every week.
There's a lot of research into solid-state batteries, for example.
I've heard of those. What makes them so special?
They have the potential to offer much higher energy density and faster charging times. compared to traditional lithium-ion batteries.
So you could go farther on a single charge and charge up much quicker.
Exactly. And they're also potentially safer and more durable.
So solid-state batteries are definitely a contender.
They are.
Hmm.
But there's also a lot of excitement around hydrogen fuel cells.
Oh, yeah. I remember learning about this in science class.
They basically produce electricity through a chemical reaction
Mm.
between hydrogen and oxygen.
And the only byproduct is water, right?
Right. So they're very clean and efficient.
So hydrogen fuel cells are another promising option.
They are. But there are also some challenges with infrastructure. We need to build out a network of hydrogen fueling stations.
Yeah, that's a big hurdle.
It is.
Yeah.
But there are companies working on it.
And then there's the possibility of solar-powered cars.
Yeah, that's a more futuristic concept, but it's definitely intriguing.
So the car would have solar panels integrated into its design.
Right, and it could generate some of its own electricity.
Wow. That would be amazing.
It would. But the technology is still limited by the efficiency of solar panels and the amount of surface area available on a vehicle.
So it's not quite practical yet.
Not yet. But who knows what the future holds?
It seems like the battery landscape is constantly evolving, with new breakthroughs and innovations emerging all the time.
It is. It's a very dynamic field.
But even with all this technological progress, there's one crucial factor that can't be overlooked: affordability. EVs are still generally more expensive than their gas-powered counterparts, which can be a barrier for many potential buyers.
That's a valid point. But EV prices have been steadily declining in recent years.
Oh, that's good to hear.
As battery technology improves and production scales up, the costs come down.
So it's just a matter of time before EVs are more affordable for the average consumer.
Exactly.
Right.
And as governments around the world implement policies to incentivize EV adoption and phase out gas-powered vehicles, we can expect to see even greater price parity in the coming years.
So it's a combination of technological advancements, market forces, and government policies that will ultimately determine how quickly EVs become mainstream.
Exactly. It's a complex interplay of factors.
But zooming out a bit, this shift towards EVs isn't just about technology and economics. It also has profound implications for the global energy landscape.
Absolutely. The widespread adoption of EVs will significantly increase demand for electricity.
Right, because we'll need to charge all those cars.
Exactly. And that means we need to rethink how we generate and distribute power.
So it's not just about building more power plants. It's about making sure those power plants are clean and sustainable.
We got it. We need to accelerate the transition to renewable energy sources, like solar, wind, and hydroelectric power.
It's like we're building a whole new energy ecosystem.
It is. It's a massive undertaking, but it's essential if we want to create a sustainable future.
But what about the impact on our cities? How will the rise of EVs change the way we live, work, and move around in urban environments?
The impact on cities will be profound. With fewer gas-guzzling vehicles on the road, we can expect to see significant improvements in air quality.
That would be amazing. I mean, cities are notorious for their air pollution.
They are. And EVs could really make a difference. And it's not just about air quality. There would also be a reduction in noise pollution.
Oh, yeah, that's true. EVs are much quieter than gas-powered cars.
They are.
Yeah.
So cities would be quieter and more peaceful places to live.
And this shift could also reshape the urban landscape itself.
Absolutely. With less need for sprawling parking lots and gas stations, cities can reclaim valuable real estate for green spaces, pedestrian walkways, and bike lanes.
So we could see a resurgence of vibrant, people-centered urban design.
Exactly, with a focus on sustainability and livability.
It's like hitting the reset button on urban planning.
In a way, it is. It's a chance to create more sustainable, equitable, and enjoyable cities for everyone.
But this transition to EVs isn't just a local or national phenomenon. It's a global revolution with far-reaching geopolitical implications.
Exactly. As countries shift away from fossil fuels, the balance of power could shift as well.
Interesting. How so?
Well, countries that control the production of critical minerals needed for EV batteries, such as lithium and cobalt, could gain significant leverage in the global economy.
So it's not just about oil anymore. It's about these new resources that are essential for EVs.
Right, and we could see new alliances and partnerships forming as nations seek to secure access to these valuable resources.
It's a reminder that the transition to EVs isn't just a technological shift. It's a geopolitical one, with the potential to reshape the global landscape.
It is. It's a fascinating time to be alive.
It really is. And as we navigate this transition, it's crucial to ensure that it benefits everyone, not just a select few.
Absolutely. We need to address concerns about equitable access to charging infrastructure the ethical sourcing of battery materials, and the potential for job displacement in traditional automotive industries.
Right. We need to make sure that no one is left behind in this transition.
Exactly. It's about creating a more sustainable and equitable future for all.
You know, with all this talk about global impacts and geopolitics, it's easy to kind of lose sight of the individual.
Yeah.
What does this EV revolution actually mean for people's everyday lives?
That's a great point. I mean, for most people, the most immediate impact will probably be on their wallets.
Yeah, for sure.
As EV prices keep dropping and charging, infrastructure becomes more readily available. Owning an EV is going to become a more viable option for a lot more people.
Absolutely.
And that could have a significant impact on household budgets.
Right.
People are going to save money on fuel and maintenance costs.
Totally. And it's not just about saving money. For some people, especially those in underserved communities, owning an EV could be life-changing, you know? Imagine having reliable transportation to access better job opportunities, healthcare, educational resources.
Absolutely. Increased EV adoption has the potential to bridge the transportation gap and create a more equitable society.
It could really level the playing field in a lot of ways.
It could, but the impacts go beyond personal finances and mobility. Think about how EVs could transform our homes.
Okay, now you've got me intrigued. How could EVs change our homes?
Well, as the technology advances, EVs could potentially become integrated into our home energy systems.
Oh, wow.
Imagine a scenario where your EV not only transports you, but also acts as a backup power source for your home during a power outage.
So like a giant battery on wheels.
Exactly. Or even as a way to store energy generated by your rooftop solar panels.
So you could charge your car during the day using solar power, and then use that stored energy to power your home at night.
Exactly. It's a concept known as vehicle-to-grid, or V2G technology.
That's pretty amazing. It's like our cars could become part of a decentralized energy grid.
It is. It's a really exciting possibility.
But let's talk about the potential downsides. What about the impact on jobs? I mean, the shift to EVs is bound to disrupt the traditional automotive industry, which could lead to job losses in manufacturing, sales, and servicing.
That's true. Some jobs will inevitably be displaced as the industry evolves.
Yeah, that's a real concern.
It is. But it's important to remember that this transition also creates new opportunities.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom.
No, not at all. We're going to need skilled workers to design, manufacture, and maintain EVs, as well as to build and operate the charging infrastructure.
So there will be new jobs created in these areas.
Absolutely. And there will be a surge in demand for software engineers, data analysts, and cybersecurity experts as EVs become increasingly connected and autonomous.
So it's not just about job losses, it's about a shift in the types of jobs that will be in demand.
Exactly. It's a shift towards more high-tech jobs.
So what can be done to ensure that workers who are displaced by the EV revolution are able to transition into these new roles?
That's where education and retraining programs come into play.
Right. We need to give people the skills they need to succeed in this new economy.
Exactly. We need to invest in providing workers with the skills they need to thrive in the EV-centric economy.
And it's not just about technical skills, is it?
No, it's also about critical thinking, problem solving, and adaptability, skills that will be essential in any industry in the future.
So it's about preparing the workforce for the jobs of the future, not clinging to the jobs of the past.
Exactly.
And this transition could also be an opportunity to revitalize communities that have been hit hard by the decline of traditional manufacturing.
Absolutely. By attracting new EV-related industries, these regions can experience economic growth and job creation. It's a chance to build a more sustainable and equitable economy, one that benefits everyone.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
The EV revolution is not just a technological shift. It's a societal transformation that will touch every aspect of our lives. It's an opportunity to build a cleaner, more sustainable, and more equitable future. But it's also a challenge that requires careful planning, thoughtful policies, and a willingness to adapt and embrace new ways of thinking.
It's been a really fascinating journey exploring the multifaceted world of electric vehicles. We've covered everything from cutting-edge technology and infrastructure challenges to the global and societal implications of this transformative shift.
It's a complex and rapidly evolving landscape.
It really is. But I think we've managed to shed some light on the key trends and challenges that are shaping the future of transportation.
I think so, too. And I hope our listeners have found this deep dive insightful and engaging.
Me too. And I hope it's inspired them to learn more about this exciting and transformative technology. Thanks for joining us, everyone. And until next time, keep on driving into the future.